Today, the 29th July, makes exactly 1 year when actually I gave a prophetical call for the opposition to unite to give marching orders to Hakainde Hichilema. And the only thing that the opposition remains to embrace is a prayer, because I also foresaw violence. There's nothing that will extend Hakainde Hichilema into power apart from violence. And I'll explain one thing that I witnessed in the victory of Michael Sata. Michael Sata, 2011 September, I was standing at City Market, at the gate of City Market. Then I saw one car that sped off, which was a taxi, a private taxi. And when I saw people also running, City Market becoming empty, then I inquired, what is happening? Someone told me that, oh, that car that sped off, it actually hit these boys that carry goods using wheelbarrows. So a wheelbarrow, actually, things that were on the top of the wheelbarrows, they fell on the floor. And to the anger of that man who was moving the wheelbarrow, descended on the driver of the car, and that's how he sped off. And when he sped off, and the people scampering in all directions, every car started speeding off from City Market. Every car started speeding off from town center. Every car left the town empty. And the unexpected, the totaling center that was handling the elections, which was intended to be rigged in favor of Lupia Banda, they started to be on a panic mode because cars were scampering every direction of Lusaka. It created fear to those who were counting, right, even those who intended to manipulate the votes, because Sata, who had actually won, the votes were being engineered. I want to warn that the opposition may be celebrating acceptance to the people, but it is very challenged by a Tanzania formula. And you know, the leadership of Freemason, the leadership that is supported by America, it does not care the death of people. To them, if 3,000 people they die, they simply go on news and say at least 3,000 people have died, at least. As long as their purpose to rule against the will of the people is achieved, they say 3,000 at least people have died. I want to tell you to say, God revealed to me many times after 1990 where I saw violence, and I thought that violence was going to happen during that time. But God confirmed to me that the government of UPND is a government of violence. And everyone is able to see my previous recording. I actually showed violence. And the recording of yesterday, I showed violence where the opposition vehicles were actually damaged and no arrest has been made. And when I listened to Benwa Mpundu talking to the police officers, and police officers were actually alleging that the people who are wrong, they are the victims whose vehicles were damaged. And that the police officer said, you must tell us where you are sleeping. Can a police officer fail to know where the people who are coming for a rally, they are sleeping? They tell me to say, whenever there's a rally, also the police officers, they go to sleep. They don't patrol the area of political activities for the safety of every citizen. So you may find that it is truth that police officers are being manipulated by the Hakainde violence everywhere government. So it is my prayer for the opposition party. And you see, the fear, or rather the fear of prophets, because there are many false prophets that have risen. It is something that I want to address, to say, I spoke God's will when I was still 19, and everything that I've spoken, it is written. There is overwhelming evidence that my God does not make any single mistake. When I was arrested on the allegation of schizophrenia or bipolar, because this allegation is made to silence those that open people's eyes. And all presidential candidates, they are always surrounded by people that masquerade to be lovers of their idea to liberate the country. But in the actual sense, they are agents of our enemies. And that's the reason why when someone was saying that, no, Mundubile is going to talk to you after winning the elections, I asked, are you sure that he's going to win the elections? Winning the election, people win the election, but they don't govern. Because those who decide who to govern, they are heartless. They don't care. They'll do rig elections. That's why they are always putting agendas where they would say, no, it's 50-50. We don't know which one can win. When the campaigns, they clearly show that indeed someone who can win is Mundubile. So it is my prayer that let's look into the record. Today I'm marking 1 year when I said I'm calling upon the opposition to unite. And the opposition did unite. And among those that united, Kasonde Mwenda was arrested to avoid his party to become a vehicle for this unit, because I mentioned his name, and as did Chiluba, who fought the rise of UPND in 2001. Also, Hakainde Hichilema spent his lifetime in leadership to fight the PF restoration process, because this process was mentioned before Edgar Lungu became president in 2012. I saw the restoration of PF, and the main purpose of PF restoration. All these other prophets that may talk about PF victory under Narep's name, because these things, they keep on repeating themselves. Why? I want to prove that as I was presenting the midnight cry, someone on Facebook says I have your books, all your books that you wrote. I believe the 3 first volumes that I wrote, the airport trap, I call them Rescue Operation Airport Trap, where I trapped Chiluba, and he told Chiluba that I'm a messenger of God. I've come to review your enemies and your relationship with God. And Chiluba did not hesitate to allow me to go with him to State House, but Sata left me, and Sata gathered the consequences of leaving me. He could not govern. There was an assassination attempt on the third. Is it the third month? Is it the fourth month? September, November, December, January. Yeah, only 3 months leadership. He suffered an assassination attempt that left him wounded until his wounds gave in 2014, which I have information that they even followed him abroad and finished him off because they realized perhaps he may recover. Well, still, he could not address any press conference. So, Fred Mwembe must tell a story about Michael Sada. I don't know. I've heard his name, that he visited Michael Sada when Michael Sada was admitted there. So I want to say that God is in control, but I can't pray for people that are not available for prayers. I've left this platform open for me to warn of the rigging of the elections through violence. Listen to this. Dependence of our natural resources. You are learning to become a secretary. You are learning. Good morning. The major concern of this discussion, or this broadcasting rather, is to warn the opposition against Hakainde Hichilema. Hakainde Hichilema must be stopped 2026. It's very easy. Why Hakainde Hichilema can be stopped? If the opposition listen to God, then Hakainde Hichilema can be stopped. If the opposition continue to disregard God's warning, then Zambia will suffer persecution for another 5 years or more. Why? Listen to the Declaration of Conscience. Was a Cold War speech made by the U.S. Senator from Maine, Margaret Chase Smith, on June 1, 1950. She stated the basic principles of Americanism were the right to criticize, the right to hold unpopular beliefs, the right to protest, the right of independent thought. These 4 things are not available in Zambian politics. These 4 things, they cannot be available. That is the reason why Hakainde Hichilema must go. When Hakainde Hichilema goes, it will be an opportunity for the opposition that would form one formidable force under Kasonde Mwenda can own the mines. I want to quote, based on this, to say this Senator, Margaret Chase Smith, she actually outlined things that need to run what is called democracy. But this democracy, because it is not a democracy, it is actually Vatican rule that constitutes the mark of the beast. The unity of the declaration of church and state as a Christian nation is actually evil. We are from an era where we understand that the European used the Bible in order to capture our mind. They actually preached more love, whilst they were inheriting our independence through democracy. And this democracy blindfolded us. We are not able to criticize. We are not able to hold our unpopular belief. We are not able to protest when we need to protest. We are not able to have independent thought. So the way the colonial masters came with the Bible on their hand, but on their right hand, but on their left hand, they were digging our natural resources, stealing from us. Today, democracy comes on the other hand, preaching independence, preaching the right to protest, but in the actual act, there's no protest. If today I would say all opposition parties can hold a protest rally, all those who are going to be in the forefront of calling for protest, they'll be arrested before they could even hold the what? The rally to protest. So the only major point here that I'm tracing is, I want to say to you to say, this democracy, they are claiming to say there is free education. What free education? What is free education? There's no free education. It's colonialism, imperialist education. You are not learning anything to do to unite Africa. You are not learning anything to do with the dependence of our natural resources. You are learning to become a secretary. You are learning to become a minister of debt management bill. So those debt management bill, which was being debated and passed in parliament, colonial master mindset, they want you to believe that you can only survive when you borrow from IMF. They want to tell you to say you can only survive when you depend from World Bank. They only tell you, they want to teach you to say you can only survive by depending on donor aid, EU funding to fight corruption. Which corruption are they fighting? They are not fighting corruption. They are actually fighting opposition. They are actually fighting the truth. Any leader that calls for ownership of natural resources, that leader has to be killed, has to be found wanting before the law. Cyber law must visit him. For any other reason, the courts in Zambia, they are under control of Hakainde Hichilema's decision to silence the opposition. And we need leaders from the opposition that are willing to save Zambia, not to save themselves as an individual. Any leader who is opposed to what I'm saying, I declare it to say, I want to prove to you to say, God appointed me to give leadership warning. And the other leader that I want to discuss about today is Michael Sat. I would ask you to request you to say, because I have letters of Michael Sat that I wrote to Michael Sat. These are the letters. Some of them, they are not here. They've been misplaced. Some, they have two pages and so, because I've been passing through thin and thick. But there are a lot of other papers that have been misplaced somewhere. I will still find some of those. But the point that I wanted you to understand is that this democracy, it has 4 horses of column. That is, column is a situation where they are using fear, ignorance, victory, smear on every leader that would stand up and speak the truth. They were threatened by arrest. They actually say that is not informed, is ignorant. They'll use victory, speaking evil. They'll start smearing on that name. So now, I want to say that if we are able to realize that today Zambia is on what this Margaret Chase Smith, the senator, said, the use of fear. Everyone fears to speak because they put the law to control the opposition, to control the citizens. Once you speak against HH, once you criticize him, they tell you, even on our Facebook, we are receiving those threats. No, the law is going to fist you. Interpol has been assigned to come and fish you out. I want to tell you to say, when the country is being driven on the mood of fear, fearless leaders must unite. I'm not saying the 20 other leaders that are for Chauncey Alliance or PF, they cannot rule Zambia. Anyone can rule Zambia. Anyone can rule Zambia. Even Tasila Lungu can still rule Zambia. Even KBF can still rule Zambia. Whosoever can rule Zambia. Because what rules Zambia is the agenda that party or that government has. What is the agenda? What are we looking for? Among all these existing opposition parties, I want to say there's a letter. Okay, before I look into that letter, let me just try to tell you one thing to say. The source of wisdom of my understanding is visions and dreams. One of the letters that I wrote, it was to Amos Chanda, State House. This letter that I wrote to Amos Chanda, State House, I believe this letter was an eye-opening to Amos Chanda. And if Amos Chanda is willing to save the nation, I know he has been hired as a propaganda machinery, part of the propaganda machinery for UPND. Because UPND is desperate to actually win the elections, and they want to use people who have been in the system to give lies of progress and achievement under UPND. Well, as that lies, they are not there. I wrote to say, RIF National Crisis and Press Statement, because he was the one who was giving conflicting statement in his support that there's nothing that has happened on Isata. When I had reviewed to him to say, I've seen that Sata has been shot in fulfillment of the vision of 2008. That visions of 2008, they were meant to save Sata from dying in the State House. But they did not understand. He did not understand. Even the people surrounding him did not understand. And my call for opposition to rally against Mwenda Kasonde, the EF leader, He never approached me for his support. God gave me a mandate to search for a leader that can accept to do what is right for Zambia, not for himself, not for me, not for anyone else, but for Zambia, because Zambia is adopted by Vatican City. That's why you find that there is a Freemason, there is also the homosexuality. Any country, even South Africa, where homosexuality is allowed, it is a sign of being adopted by the Vatican. Because these sins, they remove the nation from God. They actually compel God to curse the nation. And here it is. I wrote to Amos Chanda because he was giving a lot of contradiction instead of consenting to the fact that the president was what? Was assassinated, was an assassination attempt. Him continues to tell the nation, no, the president is attending in Tanzania, has gone for this meeting, he's in Livingstone, what and what. All was lies. Then I said, how are you? I'm all right, and the Lord is blessing me and my family. The rumors about the assassination of the president last Sabbath on 21 January 2012 happened 6 days after the 15th January 2012 appointed date for ending the 90 days national prayer. That was aborted because the president did not consent to it. The assassination rumor prompted me to SMS you and asked, is it well with the president? And you replied, he is very well. Just finished a 90 minutes interview with the Time magazine a while ago. SMS 19 hours dated 2024-01-2012. The 90 days that I'm running now, that was the 90 days that had started running in Kanyama. And these 90 days, I think I have an application that I made to Kanyama for the 90 days meeting. Okay, nevertheless, I will look at it later. But what I wanted to say is that I aborted the 90 days because SATA could not consent to it. Right now, I'm running a 90 days. I understand within these 90 days, their leaders, Botswana, came out openly addressing his decision to align himself with Ibrahim Traoré. Understand even Uganda has taken that bold decision. So my call for a United States of Africa is a political decision that God assigned Jeremiah to bring down, to destroy, and to plant kingdoms. That is power. For me to claim God's appointment, it did not just come. I was anointed when I was 19. Because the letters that I've just shown you, there are two men. There are two men. I'll read them. I'll count them anyway. I'll count them and read some of the parts to show you that God spoke all what is happening in advance. I'm calling upon all the opposition leaders, if they want, they can make a conference call. They can make a conference call. I can address and answer every question if they have any suspiciousness. If they won't take my word, they're allowing the suffering in Zambia to continue for a longer period. because the only grace period that we have is the 4 years where America has cut ties with the African countries, where there is sanctions. These sanctions, you do not need to appeal against them. You must accept them as the first reason why you are not interested to have American base in Zambia. So the reason Hakainde Hichilema still holds on America in the base is under hostage. He has no decision to make. And the reason why he does not want to resign is because he's selfish. I appealed to Hakainde Hichilema to resign when he was actually maybe 5 months in office. I wrote to him, resign. Within these 5 months, you have proven that you have failed. Actually, when it was about, almost a year, because it was 2022, somewhere there, almost a year in office. I wrote to him to say, can you resign? Because you failed. So he rejected to resign because he's fearing for his life. And they have continued to mount propaganda. And the way I'm reading this letter to Amos, I'll read it and warn Amos to say, Amos, you fought God's warning under Michael Sata. Today you are hired to fight God's call for opposition to unite by you being positioned in UPND to fight the opposition using propaganda. By this time, this propaganda won't succeed. This is what I said. This reply of the magazine this reply of an interview with Time magazine a while ago, that was SMS Time 1904, date 24/01/2012. I said this reply of a magazine that is not local and not found in the street for the poor, and the media reports and photos are not proving that the president is well. I'm Thomas, that believe by touching the wounds of the resurrected Jesus Christ's hand, and I will not believe after the national. I will only believe after the national address. So I challenged. Yes, marching orders to Hakainde Hichilema. You have heard. I thank God that Kasonde Mwenda, Siame Changala, these are people I communicated with them, and they are very active role in this Brian Mundubile campaign is something admirable, because they understood my appeal. Kasonde Mwenda was released after the filing of the nomination was closed, just for him to say the motorcade of the president lost its way. They have to take him to say, no, we need you to take us where you saw it, that it lost its way. It's a cyber law violation to misinform the people. This is the cyber law that confirms the violence everywhere. I want to appeal to the voters that if Brian Mundubile has to win, perhaps every polling station, after you vote, guard your vote. Guard your vote to make sure that the counting of every vote must be done whilst you are there, in addition to those election observers. Without doing that, there is nothing that can be achieved. Apart from that, let's hold accountable the government that will be to declare a United States of Africa as a roadmap to economical freedom by claiming our natural resources in the hands of every African leader. Because right now, democracy is controlling our voting system because governments have no money. They are being funded. Even opposition leaders, they are being funded. I understand that even the members of parliament, they are getting a lot of money, $1 million or plus in a month, which to me is something that is terrible. Because if such a thing is happening when citizens, they are in poverty every day, then it makes me feel betrayed, because politics have become the center of death, because our donor countries, they only have one thing to fund: confusion in politics. We need to return back to chiefdom. I want to tell you to say, if you look at why Vatican, they choose the Pope after the death of the Pope, is to deny competition and the death. If the Pope was selected every 5 years, there was going to be total confusion. They maintain the systems of God to rule the world corruptly, with corruption, with a corrupt hand. Why Prince Charles was disowned? Because he decided to marry outside family marriages. The kings, they still maintain marrying within the family, marrying their sisters, marrying even their mothers. To them, it's a secret that we should not know, because they are protecting the kingdom inheritance, which today religion is robbed its original family marriages. So I'm simply saying, the government that God shall establish, despite that the people that are supposed to govern in the fear of God, they are rejecting to be anointed. But when the children of Israel cried for a king, God gave them a king, but that king persecuted them worse than in Egypt. So today I want to say the Brian Mundubile government is a people's choice, but without God, it will be used against the voters. Because going to State House without a hand of God, you are under the same manipulative system, democracy. As Christianity is under the influence of the Bible that has been colonized, by colonized, that has certain sections that were distorted, that promote family marriages. Because right now, Mundubile must have family members around him, family members that would decide what he eats, family members that can help him to foresee where safety is. But the people that will always be closer to him, they are not family members. And you may not even understand the difference of the one who is hired to control you. When you enter State House, you find people who are going to be giving you orders, marching orders, to do exactly contrary to what you promised, because they want Africa to remain divided. You see, Ramaphosa is called a weak president because he sits and dine with the march and march leaders. And when he does that, he's smiling. He doesn't show anger against them because he's under remote control. I just heard recently he's speaking to say now the march and march leaders, they have no right to do that because they are violating the rights of every African. It's a response to a certain remote control because South Africa is being denied by other countries to have access to perform. The musicians, they no longer have access to go and perform in the other countries. MTN is the South African companies been blocked to operate in other African countries, such like Ghana, Nigeria. So now, when a president responds to pressure, it means the president has no direction. Is being controlled. Right now, Hakainde Chilema is in the same mode. Even when you listen to his campaign, is dividing people. Is fearing Brian Mundubile, and he sees Brian Mundubile as PF because he thought by grabbing the party from the PF, it would be done what? Is going to deny the restoration of PF, but he's seeing the PF restoration without the name itself. When Parliament sat and discredited the Chitenge material for PF, the Legaria for PF, they thought people, they see Legaria, they don't see the PF without Legaria. I want to say that the only thing that Mundubile has to do is to accept God's warning and humble himself for a life-changing prayer that can protect him. Because anyone who calls for ownership of natural resources is a direct enemy to America. They target you like Saddam Hussein. They target you like Gaddafi. Sankara was killed, and today Ibrahim Traoré is targeted because ownership of natural resources paralyzes their economy, and they will definitely launch out on you daylight. Donald Trump paralyzes people's economies. Venezuela president Maduro Nicolas was fished because someone was promised 50 million US dollar. And that 50 million, is it 50,000 or 50 million? It must be 50,000. It was not given after they fished him, because the promise is that, can you give us Maduro? We'll give you the money after we are done. That money was not given. But Nicolas Maduro was removed, and now Donald Trump is the one driving the government of Venezuela. So the government of Zambia, according to prophecy, is under Vatican, and America is the police officer and the commander, army commander of Vatican. So this government of Zambia, under the Freemasonry government of Hakainde Hichilema, cannot surrender the leadership to Mundubile on a silver plate. That's my warning. Cannot surrender leadership to Mundubile on a silver plate. The whole entire 5 years now, Hakainde's role was to fight the PF government. And even his anger is publicly known. Vakawerera pesa. They are trying to discredit the PF government without knowing one thing, that PF violence was there, but violence versus hunger was not there. People were eating. They were not suffering the way they are suffering under Hakainde Hichilema. In one of these books, I mentioned, where is it? The 12 books that I wrote to Hakainde Hichilema. On this book, where Bali will fix it, I actually said Bali will not fix it. It's a lie. And when he was lifting that sachet of fish oil, which is a salad, it was him demonstrating that when he comes into power, these things will never be. One of the major false promises that Hakainde Hichilema made, which I call him Vashi promise. And that promise of removing Pamela, those sachets measured maize meal, they are still the order and more worse than in the PF government. So maybe in a shortest statement, I'll say Brian Mundubile might not bring the expected desire of the people because of rejection of prayers. They are actually busy following people who are called prophet at the last minute, who are prophesying when victory is already decided. They come and say, no, Brian Mundubile is anointed of God. Brian Mundubile has been chosen by God. Now, me, I didn't see Brian Mundubile in 2012. I saw that PF shall be restored with one agenda. And that agenda is more dangerous because calling for ownership of natural resources in politics, it's not an easy thing. In the manner that God gives me dangerous messages, today I'm calling for family marriages as the only stable way for true worship, the only stable way to inheritance, to prolong life in marriages, to protect our children from being zombies, from being called junkies, from street kids. When there's a family marriages have a protective structure. Brother, sister marriages, in an extent where children need to be married in a desperate situation like that of Lot. The father can even marry the daughters in order to solidify no room for fornication or adultery, and the protection can be maintained. That's what God speaks. and it's actually proven in scripture. So we do not read the scripture for decoration. We read the scripture to apply what God has designed us to learn from there. Lot is one of those people that can be of good example to family marriages. In addition, Abraham confirmed the marriage to a sister. When you look at Adam and Eva, I want you to follow me in the midnight cry. Those are the issues I'm discussing. The nations must be promoting family marriages. The nations must be promoting lunar calendar, Sabbath. We need to go to the original creation of God and return again to the original minerals as our source of income, not depending on a donor country. I wrote this and warned Chiluba from privatization in 2001 because God revealed to me to say ownership of natural resources is the only way. It's me there who was greeting Chiluba, a trap at the airport. And today, what I wrote in this book still stands. Donald Trump was written in this book. Obama, a Joseph in Egypt, was written. When you look at this picture behind here, I was still fairly young, 19 years, handsome young man, when God was speaking to me. Today I have this white hair because of more stress. I want to tell you to say, what I speak, I'm not speaking by guesswork. History, past, present, progressive truth can tell us that everything that I speak, God will defend it. I have no revelation, but a new revelation. I still have the old revelation. I'm appealing to Mundubile to help me clean the political mess where I saw him. When I was cleaning the dish, he also helped me to clean it. If he can take that call, I'll pray with him for the 26th, 13th August elections. I'll have the right to assure Mundubile of victory because my God can fight every manipulation that can take place. Even his victory without my prayer, I'll still need to say, the one who shall unite Zambia and bring prosperity is the only person that has been ordained by God, not everyone's ordination. All the churches that are existing today that are registered in the fallen system of God, they cannot ordain anyone. May God bless you. Thank you for listening.